She'd disappeared. While flying over the middle of Pacific Ocean, searching for a tiny island in an endless sea. And slowly, something was going wrong. In 1937, Amelia Earhart set out on one of the most ambitious flights in history, to fly around the entire world. At the time, she wasn't just a pilot. She was a global icon. She had already made history by becoming the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. To many, she represented courage, independence, and the future of aviation. But this journey would be different. It was longer, more complex, and far more dangerous than anything she had attempted before. The plan was to travel over 40,000 kilometers, crossing continents, oceans, and some of the most remote places on Earth. There would be long stretches where no help was possible, no emergency landing, no second chances. At her side was Fred Noonan, an experienced navigator who specialized in guiding aircraft across vast oceans. At a time before modern GPS, navigation depended on precise calculations, star positions, and clear visibility. One small mistake could send them hundreds of kilometers off course. Their aircraft, a Lockheed Electra, had been modified for the journey. Extra fuel tanks were added to extend its range, allowing them to fly longer distances between stops. But even with those modifications, there was a limit. Fuel was not unlimited, and out over the Pacific Ocean, there would be nowhere to land if something went wrong. As the journey began, everything seemed under control. They moved from country to country, steadily progressing along their planned route. At each stop, crowds gathered. People followed their journey with excitement, seeing it as a symbol of human progress and determination. Amelia remained calm and focused. She knew the risks, but she trusted her preparation. And for most of the journey, that confidence seemed justified. But as they pushed closer to the final stages of the flight, the margin for error began to disappear. By late June of 1937, they had completed most of the journey. Only one critical leg remained. Ahead of them was the Pacific Ocean, vast, empty, and unforgiving. Somewhere in that endless expanse was their next destination, Howland Island. It was a small, flat strip of land, barely visible from the air. Finding it would not be easy. Missing it could be fatal. On July 2nd, 1937, Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan took off toward the island. The flight would take nearly 20 hours. For most of that time, there would be nothing below them but water. No landmarks, no reference points, just open ocean in every direction. At first, everything seemed normal. The aircraft held its course, moving steadily across the sky. But as the hours passed, conditions began to change. Clouds started to gather. Visibility dropped. The horizon blurred, making navigation far more difficult. Inside the cockpit, pressure was building. Noonan relied on celestial navigation. But without a clear view of the sun or stars, even his expertise had limits. Somewhere below them, Howland Island waited, but they couldn't see it. Then, the radio messages began. Amelia reported that they were struggling to locate the island. Her voice was controlled, but there was tension beneath it. Time was passing, fuel was burning, and the island was still nowhere in sight. Each minute increased the risk. Each failed attempt made the situation more dangerous. The ocean offered no help, no clues, no second chances. Then came one of her final transmissions. They were flying along a calculated navigation line, trying to intercept the island's position. But even that wasn't working. The signal became weaker, more broken, harder to understand, and then it stopped. No distress call, no final message, no explanation, just silence. Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan had vanished. Somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, they were simply gone. No wreckage was ever found. No confirmed crash site, nothing. But when the search began, it didn't bring answers. Instead, it uncovered something strange, something that didn't make sense. And some believe those clues may point to one thing: the truth. When Amelia Earhart disappeared, it didn't take long for the world to notice. She wasn't just any pilot. She was one of the most famous women on Earth. And now, she was missing. Within hours, concern turned into urgency. A massive search operation was launched across the Pacific Ocean. Ships and aircraft were deployed to scan thousands of kilometers of open water. It would become one of the largest and most expensive search efforts of its time. The plan was simple: find the aircraft, locate the crash site, and bring answers to what had happened. But almost immediately, something felt wrong. Despite covering vast areas of ocean, they found nothing. No floating debris, no oil slick, no signs of impact. It was as if the plane had never been there at all. But then, something unusual started to happen. Radio operators began picking up signals, faint transmissions, distorted messages. Some of them sounded like distress calls, and a few of those signals were believed to be coming from Amelia herself. This raised a disturbing possibility. If those signals were real, then it meant one thing: she hadn't crashed immediately. She may have landed somewhere unknown, somewhere no one was searching. As reports of these signals spread, investigators began to question everything. Had the aircraft gone down at sea, or somewhere else entirely? Because if Amelia was still transmitting, then she was still alive, at least for a while. As the search continued, new theories began to emerge. One of the most widely accepted explanations was simple. Amelia Earhart had run out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. It was a logical conclusion. The conditions were difficult, navigation had failed, and time had run out. But there was a problem. No physical evidence ever confirmed it. No wreckage, no verified crash site, nothing that proved the aircraft had gone down in the sea. And then there were the radio signals. Signals that suggested the aircraft might have been intact, at least for some time after the disappearance. This led to another theory, that Amelia and Fred Noonan had managed to land on a remote island, one of the many small uninhabited islands scattered across the Pacific, stranded, injured, and slowly running out of supplies. Some investigators pointed toward a remote island, now known as Nikumaroro. Years later, explorers claimed to have found strange clues there, objects, fragments, and signs that suggested someone may have been stranded on the island long ago. But even those discoveries were never confirmed beyond doubt. Then there were more extreme theories. Some believed Amelia had been captured. Others claimed her disappearance was part of a secret mission. Stories that blurred the line between fact and speculation. But none of them could fully explain the mystery. Because no matter how many theories were proposed, one fact remained unchanged. Amelia Earhart was never found. Not in the ocean, not on land, not anywhere. Her disappearance became one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in aviation history. A story filled with questions, but no clear answers. And even today, decades later, people are still searching, still analyzing the evidence, still asking the same question. What really happened to Amelia Earhart? Because somewhere out there, buried in the ocean or hidden on a remote island, the truth may still exist, waiting to be discovered.